So here is our communication strategies presentation. Okay, so getting started. So whether it's the speech you deliver in your boardroom or your classroom, the level of attention you give your spouse or partner or your anybody, your coworker, when they are talking to you, or look that you give to the cat, it all means something. And then let's talk about more of that. Okay, so today's workshop objectives. Okay, research has consistently demonstrated that when clear goals are associated with learning, it occurs more easily and rapidly. And with that in mind, let's review our goals for today. At the end of this workshop, participants should be able to understand what communication is, identify methods of communication, identify barriers to communication, and how to overcome them. Develop nonverbal and paraverbal communication skills. Use the STAR method. Listen actively and effectively. Ask good questions and use appreciative inquiry as a communication tool. Adeptly converse and network with others. Identify and mitigate precipitating factors. Establishing common ground with others, and use the I messages. Okay, and we have some quotes for you, and this one is, the more elaborate our means of communication, the less we communicate, by Joseph Priestley. Okay, okay, Mike, to you.
Okay, so the big picture. When we say the word communication, many people will think of the spoken word. People who are hearing impaired might think of sign language, and people who are visually impaired might think of braille as well as sounds. So in this module, we're going to explore the different ways in which we communicate. So what is communication? Communication is the imparting and interchanging of thoughts, opinions, or information by which we speak, write, or sign. It's also defined as means of sending messages, which include like the telephone, text messages, radio, television. And as far as biology, communication is an activity by one organism that changes or has the potential to change the behavior of another organism. And the effectiveness of our communication can have many different effects on our lives, including levels of our stress, relationships with others, level of satisfaction with your life, productivity, the ability to meet and reach goals, and ability to solve problems, to name a few. So how do we communicate? We communicate in three major ways. There's spoken. So this is actually broken down into two separate components. There's verbal, and is what we're saying, and then there's paraverbal, and this means how we actually say it. This is our tone, our speed, our pitch, the volume. Then we have nonverbal, and these are gestures and body language that accompany our words. So examples of these are like folding your arms across your chest, or like rolling your eyes, tapping your feet, having a hunched like posture, eye contact or lack thereof, your clothing, gestures, all that, etc. That's nonverbal. And then there's also written. So this is communication can take place during your text messages, emails, any other form of written communication. So other factors in communication that we should consider is method. The method in which the communicator shares their message is important as important as it has an effect on the message itself. Communication methods include person-to-person, telephone, email, text, radio, fax, public presentations, PowerPoint presentations, television broadcasts, and there's so much more. And then mass, the number of people actually receiving the message, and then audience. The person or people receiving the message affect the message too. Their understanding of the topic and the way in which they receive your message can affect how it is interpreted and understood. Okay, so we're just going to do a couple of review questions here, and you could just type in the chat what you think the answer is. So first question, which of the following areas is affected by communication? A, productivity, B, ability to solve problems, C, relationships with others, or D, all of the above? Okay, great. Yes, D, all of the above. Remember, I mentioned it has that communication can affect the level of stress, our relationship with others, ability to reach goals, and so on. Okay, next question. What is nonverbal communication? Is this A, sending a text message, B, your tone, C, gestures and body language, or D, the written word? Great, yes, C. Nonverbal is our gestures, body language, even our clothes, apparel, all of that is all nonverbal communication. Great. Okay, next one. The following is not a method of communication. A, Braille, B, a PowerPoint presentation, C, text messaging, and D, none of the above. What do you think? You see D? Yes. So none of the above. Even this PowerPoint presentation that we're doing today, this is a form of communication. We're communicating about communication. It's all forms of communication. Okay. Then a quote says, when you come right down to it, how many people speak the same language, even when they speak the same language? Russell Hoban. All right, back to you, Tomoko.
Hey, Module 3, Understanding Communication Barriers. On the surface, communication seems pretty simple. I talk, you listen, you send me an email, I read it. And Jimmy Fallon makes a TV show, we watch it. Like most things in life, however, communication is far more complicated than it seems. Let's look at some of the most common barriers and how to reduce their impact on communication. Okay, an overview of common barriers. Many things can impede communication. Common things that people list as barriers include I can't explain the message to the other person in words that they understand, or I can't show the other person what I mean, or I don't have enough time to communicate effectively, or the person I am trying to communicate with doesn't have the same background as me and is missing the bigger picture of my message. So these barriers typically break down into three categories: language, culture, and location. And let's look into the language barriers. So, of course, one of the biggest barriers to written and spoken communication is language. This can appear in three main forms: the people communicating speaking different languages. The language being used is not the first language for one or more people involved in the communication. The people communicating speak the same language but are from different regions and therefore have different dialects or unique uh, subtleties. And there are a few ways to reduce the impact of these barriers. So as a group, identify that the barrier exists. Identify things that the group can do to minimize it. And pictures speak 1,000 words and can communicate across languages. And if you're going to be communicating with this person on a long-term basis, try to find a common language. You may also consider hiring a translator. Okay, cultural barriers. So there can also be times when people speak the same language but are from a different culture where different words of gestures can mean different things. Or perhaps the person you're communicating with is from a different class from you. So that is very different from like living in India or living in the US or of course living in Hawaii. It's all different. So all these things can hinder your ability to get your message across effectively. So if you have the opportunity to prepare, find out as much as you can about the other person's culture and background and how it differs from yours. And try to identify possible areas of misunderstanding and how to prevent or resolve those problems. An example, a British restaurant owner needs to talk to a culinary specialist in Australia. And although they speak the same language, their words could mean very different things. Or a Hawaii chef may need to talk to chefs from the continental US, and they might not understand the word what pupus are. So we need to explain what boo-boos mean. So if you don't have time to prepare and find yourself in an awkward situation, use the cultural differences to your advantage. Ask about the differences that you notice and encourage questions about your culture. Ensure that your questions are curious, not judgmental, resentful, or otherwise negative. 8. Differences in time and place. So, barriers of time and place can hinder effective communication. For instance, if Bill on the East Coast called Kaleo in Hawaii after lunch, Kaleo may be less responsive due to just starting his day off. So, to overcome this, acknowledge the time and place difference. Engage in small talk about the weather to understand each other's environment. And what you can do is schedule calls and meetings at mutually convenient times. Another thing you can do is utilize emails as for communication when urgent or complex issues arise. And lastly, avoid rushed communication. Strive for clarity and confirm understanding through playback. Okay, we have this review question for you. How can one reduce the impact of language barriers? A, identify that the barrier exists as a group. B, try to find a common language to communicate. Use C, use pictures to communicate your meaning. D, all of the above. Type in the chat box. See some D, D, yes, correct. D is a correct number. As a group, identify that the barrier exists. Identify things that the group can do to minimize it, and picture speaks 1,000 words and can communicate across languages. If you are going to be communicating with a person on a long-term basis, try to find a common language. Okay. Another question I have for you. What is rushed communication? A, when people communicate from different time zones. B, when people communicate from different countries. C, when people are short on time and communicate quickly. D, when people have plenty of time but have cultural barriers and can't communicate correctly. What is the correct answer? Okay, I see a C. Do you have any other answers? C. Correct. C is the correct answer. Another thing to watch out for is rush communication. The pressure of time can cause either party to make assumptions and leaps of faith. Okay, moving on. Question number 3. What is a cultural barrier? A, when people speak different languages. B, when people come from different areas. C, when people come from different areas and their gestures and meanings of words differ. D, when people come from the same place but don't get on. Okay, what is the correct answer? C. Yes, correct. C is the correct answer. There can also be times when people speak the same language but are from a different culture where different words or gestures can mean different things. Okay, a quote for you. Many attempts to communicate are nullified by saying too much. Robert Greenleaf. Back to you, Kim.
Okay, paraverbal communication skills. Have you ever heard the saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it? This is very, very true. So I'm going to say these 3 sentences, and then I'm going to place emphasis on the underlined word, and you guys can kind of hear it. It says, I didn't say you were wrong. 1. I didn't say you were wrong. And then I didn't say you were wrong. So it's just how you emphasize different words. And I know we all do this all the time. And you pick up more on that one word. And it could change what you actually mean in that sentence, right? So now we're going to look at the 3 parts of paraverbal communication, which is the message told through pitch, tone, and the speed of which we communicate. So the power of pitch. Pitch can most simply be defined as the key of your voice. A high pitch is often interpreted as anxious or upset. A low pitch sounds more serious and authoritative. People will pick up on your pitch, the pitch of your voice, and react to it. As well, variations in pitch of your voice is important to keep the other party interested. I think we've all had instructors or been to meetings where they talk like this and everything's very monotone, and you lose their attention and you're instantly just start daydreaming or thinking of other things. And then hopefully we've all had instructors who are really engaging. They present their material and it captivates you. It captivates the audience, right? And this is just about the pitch of our voice. So if you naturally speak in a very high pitched or low pitched voice, you may want to work on varying your pitch to encompass all the ranges of your vocal cords. And the easy way to do this is just relaxing your throat when you're speaking, but pay attention to your own body language so you don't damage any of your vocal cords. And then the truth about tone. Did your mother, or your father, or grandparents, or say, don't use that tone with me? They were referring to the combination of various pitches to create a mood. Speed, which we will discuss in the next module, can also have an effect on your tone. So here are some tips on creating a positive yet authoritative tone. So you could try lowering your pitch a bit. You can smile, right? This will warm up your voice. Sit up straight and listen, and then monitor your inner monologue. Negative thinking will also seep into the tone of your voice. And then the pace at which you speak, so the strength of speed, sorry. The pace at which we speak also has a tremendous effect on your communication ability. From a practical perspective, someone who speaks quickly is harder to understand than someone who speaks at a moderate pace. This is why we always tell you guys to slow down when giving presentations, or you might have heard that, like slow it down. Many times when we get nervous, our speech tends to speed up. And then conversely, someone who speaks very slowly will probably lose the audience's interest and attention before they get very far. So it's very important to kind of find that balance. Speed also has an effect on tone and emotional quality of the message. And a hurried pace can make the listener feel anxious or rushed. A slow pace can make the listener feel as if the message is not important, or it can make the person feel like they're dumbing something down in a way. So a moderate pace will seem natural and help the listener focus on the message. An easy way to check your pitch and tone and speed is to record yourself speaking. And then think of how you would feel listening to your voice back. So an easy way to do this is just call your cell phone, and leave yourself a message. And then when you actually leave an extended message, and you could just read something, a paragraph, but you can listen to your own voice and actually hear how you sound to other people. Okay, so a couple questions for this module. Okay, question. Which of the following is not a factor of paraverbal communication? Is it pitch, A, B, tone, C, body language, or D, speed? Great, C, paraverbal communication, which is a message told through the pitch, tone, and speed of our words when we communicate, and doesn't have to do with the nonverbal. Great. Okay, next one. A high pitch is usually interpreted as A, anxious and upset, B, happy and free, C, serious and authoritative, or D, bossy and irritating. Great, yes, A. High pitch is often interpreted as anxious or upset. Great. Okay, last one. Speaking faster may lead to an anxious listener, A, B, a bored listener, C, a relaxed listener, or D, an intrigued listener. Okay, great. A, yes, a hurried pace can make the listener feel anxious and rushed. Great job. Okay, quotes. The most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. Peter Drucker. Okay.
Okay, Module 5, So when you are communicating, your body is sending a message that is as powerful as your words. In our following discussions, remember that our interpretations are just that, common interpretations. For example, the person sitting with their legs crossed may simply be more comfortable that way and not feeling closed minded towards the discussion. But body language can also mean different things across different genders and cultures. However, it is good to understand how various behaviors are often seen so that we can make sure our body is sending the same message as our mouth. Think about these scenarios for a moment. What nonverbal messages might you receive in each scenario? How might these nonverbal messages affect the verbal message? Okay, so this is the scenario. Your boss asks you to come into his office to discuss a new project. He looks stern and his arms are crossed. Or a team member tells you they have bad news, but they're smiling as they say it. And another one would be you tell a coworker that you cannot help them with a project. They say that it's okay, but they slam your office door on their way out. So this is the first goal of this module, to help you understand how to use body language to become more effective communicator. Another goal, one which you will achieve with time and practice, is to be able to interpret body language. Add it to the message you are receiving and understand the message being sent appropriately. With this in mind, let's look at the components of nonverbal communication. Okay, understanding the Moravian study. So in 1971, psychologist Albert Moravian published a famous study called Silent Messages. In it, he made several conclusions about the way the spoken word is received. Although this study has been misquoted often throughout the years, its basic conclusion is that 7% of our message is verbal, 38% is paraverbal, and 55 is from body language. Now, we know this is not true in all situations. If someone is speaking to you in a foreign language, you cannot understand 93% of what they're saying. Or if you're reading a written letter, you are likely getting more than 7% of the sender's message. And what this study does tell us is that body language is a vital part of our communication with others. With this in mind, let's look at the messages that our body can send. Okay, all about body language. So body language is a very broad term that simply means the way in which our body speaks to others. We have included an overview of three major categories below. We will discuss a fourth category, gestures, in a moment. Okay, so the way that we are standing or sitting. Think for a moment about different types of posture and the message that they relay. Sitting hunched over typically indicates stress or discomfort. Leaning back when standing or sitting indicates a casual and relaxed demeanor. And standing ramrod straight typically indicates stiffness and anxiety. Another one is the position of our arms, legs, feet, and hands. Crossed arms and legs often indicate a closed mind. Fidgeting is usually a sign of boredom or nervousness. And facial expressions. Smiles and frowns speak a million words. Another one is a raised eyebrow can mean inquisitiveness or curiosity or disbelief. And chewing one's lip can indicate thinking, or it can be a sign of boredom, anxiety, or nervousness. Okay. Interpreting gestures. A gesture is a nonverbal message that is made with a specific part of the body. Gestures differ greatly from region to region and from culture to culture. And of course, in Hawaii, we have different gestures from other places. But below, we have a list of gestures that there are common interpretation in North America. So nodding the head is yes. In India, nodding your head is not yes. Moving your head sideways, that is a yes in India. So moving head from side to side in the US would be maybe. And that'll be a yes in India. It's a little bit confusing. Thumbs up, agreement, okay. Handshake, welcome, and introduction. Clap on the hand, doesn't matter, go ahead. Okay, so that was just in North America. Okay, Review questions. Number one, your boss asks you to come into his office to discuss a new project, but his arms are crossed and he looks stern. The nonverbal message you receive is A, negative, B, positive, C, unknown, D, none of the above. What is the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? A, correct. A is the correct answer. Your boss's body language is negative. Okay, number two, the study's basic conclusion is that A, 7% of our message is verbal, 38 is paraverbal, 55 is from body language. Or B, 55 is verbal, 38 is paraverbal, 7 is body language. Or C, 38 of our message is verbal, 7 paraverbal, 55 body language. Or D, 7 verbal, 55 paraverbal, 38 body language. Correct. A is the correct answer. Its basic conclusion is that 7% of our message is verbal, 38 paraverbal, and 55 body language. Okay. Which of the following is defensive gesture? A, handshake. B, crossed arms. C, waving hands. D, shrugging shoulders. Which of the following is a defensive gesture? Correct, B, crossed arms. Okay, another quote for you. Be sincere, be brief, be seated. Franklin Roosevelt. And back to you, Kim.
Okay, speaking like a star. Now that we have explored all the quasi-verbal elements of communication, let's look at the actual message you are sending. You can ensure any message is clear, complete, correct, and concise with the STAR acronym. So the first one is S, situation. First, state what the situation is. Try to make this no longer than one sentence. If you're having trouble, you can ask yourself where, who, and when, and this will provide a base for your message so it can be clear and concise. An example of this could be, on Tuesday, I was in the director's meeting at the main plant. Okay. Next is T for task. Next, briefly state what your task was. Again, this should be no longer than one sentence. Use the question what to frame the sentence and add why if it's appropriate. So an example is, I was asked to present last year's sales figures to the group. And then next is A for action. Now state what you did to resolve the problem in one sentence. Use the question how to frame this part of the statement. The action part will provide a solid description and state the precise actions that will resolve any issues. So an example is, I pulled out my laptop, fired up the PowerPoint presentation, and presented my slideshow. Okay. And the next is R for result. So lastly, state what the result was. This will often use a combination of the 6 roots. So again, a precise short description of the results that come from your previous steps will finish on a strong, definite tone or note. So an example of this would be, everyone was wowed by my prep work and by our great figures. It's compiling everything together. Okay, and then summary. So let's look at a complete example using STAR. So let's say you're out with friends on a weekend and someone asks you what the highlight of your week was or work week was. As it happened, you had a great week and there was a lot to talk about. You use the STAR to focus your answers, and this way you don't bore your friends, and you send a clear message. So you could respond, on Tuesday, I was in the director's meeting at the main plant. I was asked to present last year's sales figures to the group, and I pulled out my laptop, fired up my PowerPoint, and presented my slideshow. Everyone was wowed by my prep work and our great figures. So it's kind of compiling all of them together. This format can be compressed for quick conversations. So if you have limited time and you're trying to get out a lot of information in that short time, or expand for lengthy presentations. We encourage you to try framing statements with STAR and see how much more confident you may feel when you're communicating. Okay, question. Let's see. When does the STAR acronym describe? We have A, situation, temper, action, and result. B, situation, task, action, result. C, stereotypes, timing, action, and result. And then D, situation, timing, action, result. Any takers? Great. B. B is correct. Situation, task, action, and results. That's what STAR stands for. Okay. Okay, action is best described as a statement of what was done to resolve a problem. B, a statement of what was done to implement a problem. C, a statement of situation, or D, a statement of results. This one's a little tricky. Yeah. It's actually A. The action part will provide a solid description and state the precise actions that will resolve any issues. Okay. And then 3, which of the following is not an open-ended question? We have A, who, B, when, C, how, or D, cost. Okay. So the answer is D. Who, what, where, when are all open-ended. And then the last one's D is cost. Usually you get like an answer, like $5. So it's kind of a closed-end question. Okay. So when people talk, listen completely. Ernest Hemingway. All right, back to you, Tomoko.
Hey, Module 7. So far we have discussed all the components of sending a message, nonverbal, paraverbal, and verbal. Now let's turn the table, then look at how to effectively receive messages. Okay, 7 ways to listen better today. So listening requires actively interpreting both verbal and nonverbal cues. To improve, focus solely on listening, avoid distractions like phone use or multitasking. The second thing is minimize interruption, jot down tasks if needed, and return focus to the conversation. And the third one would be strive for 90% listening time, with relevant talking making up the remaining 10%. Number 4, engage with questions to clarify and explore the speaker's message. And another one is refrain from giving advice unless requested. Clarify their needs if unsure. And the next one would be ensure a conducive environment by minimizing noise and distractions. And lastly, if note taking is necessary, do so without disrupting the conversation flow. Ask for a break if needed. So, personally, for me, refrain from giving advice unless requested. That's what I need to work on at home because I do that all the time with my husband. So I need to not give any advice and just listen. And that's what I need to work on. Okay. So understanding active listening. So active listening involves understanding the speaker's perspective, attentively listening and responding appropriately, whether through nonverbal cues, questions, or paraphrasing to convey understanding. So there are 3 basic steps to actively listening. Number 1, understanding the speaker's perspective. And number 2, attentively listening. And number 3, appropriately responding with cues, questions, or paraphrasing. Okay, sending good signals to others. So when we are listening to others speak, there are 3 kinds of cues that we can give the other person. Using the right kind of cue at the right time is crucial for keeping good communication going on. So the first one is nonverbal. As shown in the Moravian study, body language plays an important part in our communication with others. Head nods and an interested facial expression will show the speaker that you're listening. And verbal fillers words like uh-huh or oh. So these show the speaker that you're awake and interested in the conversation. And verbal, asking open questions using the six roots discussed earlier: who, what, where, when, why, how. Paraphrasing and asking summary questions are all key tools for active listening. And we look at questioning skills in a moment. So these cues should be used as part of active listening. Inserting an occasional during a conversation may fool the person that you're communicating with in the short term, but you're fooling yourself if you feel that this is an effective communication approach. Hey, review questions. Number one, the following is a good way to become a better listener. A, spend 90% of your time listening and 10% talking. B, spend 10% of your time listening and 90% talking. C, spend 50 of your time listening and 50 talking. D, 20 talking, 80 listening. What is the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? Okay, we have a A and a D. A is the correct answer. A, aim to spend at least 90% of your time listening and less than 10% of your time talking. Okay, moving on. When listening, one should A, avoid interruptions. B, spend 10% of your time listening. C, offer heedless advice. D, ignore the speaker. Which one is the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? Okay, A is the correct answer. When you're listening, listen. Don't talk on the phone, text message, clean off your desk, or do anything else. Listen. Okay, moving on. Number three, this is not a step of active listening. A, listening to what others have to say closely. B, trying to identify the other person's standpoint. C, responding inappropriately. D, none of the above. Which one is not a step of active listening? A, B, C, or D? Correct. C is the correct answer. When you do talk, make sure it's related to what the other person is saying. Do not respond inappropriately. Hey, number four, quasi-verbal signal may be A, asking open questions. B, using filler words. C, body language and gestures. D, nodding your head. Which one is a quasi-verbal signal? A, B, C, or D? Correct. B is the correct answer. Quasi-verbal fillers with words like and show the speaker that you are awake and interested in the conversation. Okay. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reasons for existing. Albert Einstein. Back to you, Kim.
Okay, asking good questions. Good questioning skills is another building block of successful communication. We have already encountered several possible scenarios where questions help us gather information, clarify facts, and communicate with others. And in this module, we'll look closer at these questioning techniques that you can use throughout the communication process. Okay, so open-ended questions. We discussed open questions a bit when exploring the STAR module earlier. Open questions get their name because the response is open-ended. The answer has a wide range of options to choose from when answering. So open-ended questions are who, what, where, when, why, how. Open questions are like going fishing with a net. You never know what you're going to get. Open questions are great conversation starters. They're fact finders and communication enhancers, right? And a lot of people use them whenever possible to get information. Okay, the next is closed questions. Closed questions are the opposite of open questions. Their very structure limits the answers to either a yes, no, or a very specific piece of information. Some examples include, do you like chocolate? Were you born in December? Is it 5 o'clock yet? Although closed questions tend to shut down communication, they can be very useful if they are searching for a particular piece of information or winding down the conversation. If you use closed questions and it shuts down the conversation, you can simply use an open-ended question to kind of get things going again, to continue the conversation. So an example could be, do you like the Flaming Ducks hockey team? And the person's like, yeah. So that kind of stops it right there. Then you can ask, oh, cool, who's your favorite player? And then it kind of reopens the conversation again. Okay, and then we have probing questions. In addition to the basic open and closed questions, there's also a toolbox of probing questions that we can use. These questions can be open or closed, but each type serves a specific purpose. So the first one is clarification. By probing for clarification, you invite the other person to share more information so that you can fully understand their message. Clarification questions often look like this. Please tell me more about, what did you mean by that? What does so-and-so look like? And then completeness or the correctness is another one. And these types of questions can help you ensure that you have a full or that you have the full or true story. So having all the facts in turn can protect you from assuming or jumping to conclusions, which are two fatal barriers to communication. So an example of these questions can include, what else happened after that? Or did that end the blah, 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 blah. So you're asking very specific. And then determining relevance. So this category will help you determine how or if a particular point is related to the conversation at hand. It can also help you get the speaker back on track if he's gone off on a tangent. Some good ways to frame relevant questions are, how is that like blah, 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 or how does that relate to blah, 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 blah. Or you can actually just be a little bit more thing and be like, can we come back to what we are talking about? You're directing the audience back to the initial conversation. And the next is drilling down. You will use these types of questions to nail down a very vague statement. Some useful helpers can include, can you please describe, or what did you mean by that? Or could you please give an example? And then lastly, we have summarizing. And these questions are framed more like a statement. They kind of pull everything together, all the relevant points, and they can be used to confirm to the listener that you heard what you said. So you're kind of just the communication, making sure that you heard correctly what was said to you. And to give them an opportunity to correct any of their misunderstandings. So if you didn't take the message correctly by restating it to them, is a way of double checking to make sure you heard them correctly and they could correct anything. So an example could be, so you picked out a dress, had to get it fitted 3 times and missed the wedding in the end. So be careful to avoid repeating the speaker's words. Let's see that question. Let's see, the questions got mixed up, so I had to open in a question in the other one. Okay, review question number 8. The following is an example of an open-ended question. You were born in December. A, what time is it? B, C, why was the door left open? Or D, none of the above? C is great. Yep. There could be many reasons the door is being left open. Therefore, it's an open-ended question. Okay. The following is an example of a closed question. A, were you born in December? B, do you like chocolate? C, is it 5 o'clock yet? Or D, all of the above? Yep, great. D, all of the above. And then last, which would be a characteristic of summarizing? A, separates relevant points. B, can confirm to the listener, confirm that the listener heard what was said. Or C, often involve paraphrasing. Or D, both B and C. Yes, great. They can be both of them, paraphrasing and confirming. they say is repeating what you think the speaker said in your own words. Great. Okay. Another quote. If you ask the wrong question, of course you'll get the wrong answer. Armory Levins. Okay, back to you, Tomoko.
Okay, thank you. Module 9, Appreciative Inquiry. So traditional communication often focuses on what is wrong and how we can fix it. Think back to your last performance review, visit to the doctor, or if you think about how you can go through this communication, we spend a whole day talking about appreciative gestures and inquiry. So this module will give you a brief state of what AI is all about. So this AI is not the chat GPT AI. So let's go to the module. The purpose of AI. To understand the purpose of appreciative inquiry, let's look at each of its parts. Appreciate is defined by the Random House Dictionary as to value or regard highly, to be fully conscious of, be aware of, detect, to rise in value. In the same dictionary, inquiry is defined as the act of inquiring or seeking information by questioning. And therefore, appreciative inquiry can be defined as the act of seeking information about the things that we value. Okay, the 4 stages we have discover, dream, design, and destiny. So appreciative inquiry includes 4 basic stages. Note that these stages are viewed as a cycle. AI allows people so this AI is appreciative inquiry allows people and organizations to grow and evolve through the continuous use of the process. Discover what processes are working. Dream what processes could work. Design what would the process look like? How could we implement them? And destiny, let's give it a try. Okay, so examples and case studies. So appreciative inquiry has been used in many different ways in many different organizations. Some projects where it has been a key tool include creation of learning network for organizational psychologists at the California School of Professional Psychology, and process improvement at John Deere that results in millions of dollars in savings. Relief efforts for children orphaned by AIDS in Zimbabwe, and integration of mental health services in England. Hey, review question. What is the purpose of appreciative inquiry? A, to seek information. B, to seek information about the things we undervalue. C, to seek information about the things we value. D, to seek information about random processes. Type in the chat box, what is the correct answer? A, B, C, or D? Okay, we have a C here. Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, well, C is the correct answer. Appreciative inquiry can be defined as the act of seeking information about the things that we value. Question number 2. An example of how appreciative inquiry may be implemented is A, integration of mental health services in England. B, process improvement at John Deere resulting in millions of dollars in savings. C, relief efforts for children orphaned by AIDS in Zimbabwe. D, all of the above. Correct. D is the correct answer. Appreciative inquiry has been used in many different ways in many different organizations, including those mentioned. Okay. Number 3, select the correct breakdown of appreciative inquiry. A, dream, deliberate, discover, design, and destiny. B, dream, deliberate, discover, design, dictate, destiny. Or C, discover, dream, design, destiny. Or D, dream, design, debilitate, destiny, discover, deliberate, dictate. Okay, C is the correct answer. Okay. 2 monologues do not make a dialogue. Jeff Daly. And back to you, Kim. Kim,
There
you're
we go.
muted.
We're gonna, sorry. We're gonna do mastering the art of conversation. So engaging in interesting, memorable small talk can be a very daunting task for some people. How do you know what to share and when to share it? How do you know what topics to avoid? How do you become better at engaging and conversing? Most experts propose a simple three-level framework that can help you master the art of conversation. Identifying where you are, where you should be is not always easy, but having an objective outline can help you stay out of sticky situations. We will also share some handy networking tips that will help you get the conversation started. All right. So, level one, discussing general topics. At the most basic level, stick to general topics such as the weather, sports, any non-controversial world events, movies, books. This is typically what we refer to as small talk. At this stage, we'll focus on facts rather than feelings, ideas, and perspectives. And then death, religion, and politics are absolute no-nos. So you don't want to bring any of those up. If someone shares a fact that you feel may be not true or something you don't necessarily agree with, try to refrain from pointing out the discrepancy. If you're asked specifically about the fact, it's okay to say, I wasn't aware of that, or maybe some other neutral comment. Right now, you're simply getting to know the other party. Keep an eye out for common ground while you are communicating, and then use the open-ended questions and listening skills to get as much out of the conversation as possible. Okay, so level two, sharing ideas and perspectives. If the first level of conversation goes well, the parties should feel comfortable with each other and identified some common ground. Now it's time to move a bit beyond general facts and share different ideas and perspectives. It is important to note that not all personal experiences are appropriate to share at this level. For example, it's fine to share that you like cross-country skiing and then you just went to Europe, but you may want to leave out the fact that you took out a personal loan to do so. So although this level of conversation is one of the most often used and is the most conductive to relationship building and opening communication channels, make sure you don't limit yourself to just one person in a large social gathering. And then I'll mention some of some successful tips about mingling in a minute. Okay, so level three, sharing personal experiences. This is the most personal level of conversation, and this is where everything is on the table and personal details are being shared. This level is typically not appropriate for like a social casual meeting. However, all the skills that we've learned today are crucial at the stage in particular. So when people are talking about matters of the heart, they require our complete attention, excellent listening skills, and skills probing with appropriate questions. Okay, so our top networking tips. Understanding how we converse and how to make small talk are great skills, but how do you get to the point, right? The answer is simple, but far from easy. You walk up, shake their hand, and say hello. And if you're in the middle of a social gathering, you could try some of these networking tips. So before the gathering, imagine the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen. And then see if it's really likely. So an example is you fear that people will laugh at you when you try to join their group or introduce yourself. And most likely, it's very unlikely this will actually happen, right? Remember that everyone is as nervous as you are, and then focus on turning that energy into a positive force. You can increase your confidence by preparing like a great introduction. This is also like an elevator pitch you've heard. So you kind of already have something in your head that you can go up and use with somebody. So an example is, hi, my name is Kim. I'm from accounting. I think I recognize you from the IT conference last month or something like that. So you kind of already have some starter conversation in your head. And then the other thing is just to do it. The longer you think about meeting new people, the harder it will be. Get out there, introduce yourself, and meet these new people. You can join a group of odd number people that are standing around. So that way, if you're talking to somebody, they're talking to somebody, it kind of breaks away. You could try mingling as much as possible. And then also remember, people love to talk about themselves. So another thing is just going out and just asking those open-ended questions to get to know somebody. Sometimes it's really easy to talk to somebody, and if you don't have something else to say, you can always probe them to say something about themselves. It's a great way to continue communicating because, again, people always like to talk about themselves. So a nice little tip. And then you try to remember the person's name. So they use you could do that by saying like using the name in like a sentence to remember it. So like Mr. Singh likes to sing, or Sue sues people for a living, or how funny Amy Pipes is a plumber. So you're kind of using the name when you're meeting these new people, you try to remember their names as much as possible. So when you go back, you'd be like, oh, I spoke with Jan and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so review questions. So level 1 is defined as A, sharing ideas and perspectives, B, sharing personal experiences, C, basic introductions, or D, discussing general topics. Great, D, yes, perfect. Okay, next one. Okay, level 3 is defined as A, sharing ideas and perspectives, B, sharing personal experiences, C, basic introductions, or D, discussing general topics. Perfect. B, yes, sharing the personal experiences. Okay, next one. So to increase your confidence, you could A, turn up at gatherings unprepared, B, be negative, C, overthink your social interactions, or D, prepare a great introduction. Yeah, this one's easy. D, yes. Prepare the introduction, that elevator pitch, have that conversation started so when you go in, you feel confident. All right. The relationship is the communication bridge between people. Alfred Kajishin. I'm going to butcher that. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go back to you.
Okay, thank you. So Module 11, Advanced Communication Skills. So during this workshop, we have learned a lot about communication. We would like to wrap things up with a brief discussion on a few advanced communication topics. Adding these skills to your toolbox and using them regularly will make you a more efficient, effective communicator. Understanding precipitating factors. Life can be a snowball where events can either build up positively or negatively. For instance, encountering construction, waking up late, running out of coffee, and facing long cafeteria lines can make for a rough morning. Successful communicators recognize these precipitating factors and adjust their approach accordingly, helping to depersonalize negative comments and assist others in resolving their issues. Establishing common ground. Finding common ties can be a powerful communication tool. Think of those times when a stranger turns out not to be a stranger, that the person next to you on the train grew up in the same town that you did, or that the coworker you never really liked enjoys woodworking as much as you do. So whenever you're communicating with someone, whether it is a basic conversation, a problem-solving session, or a team meeting, try to find ways in which you are alike. Focusing on positive connections will help you build stronger relationships and better communication. Hey, and using the I messages, the objective description of the behavior. So reacting to statements like your outfit is too casual for this meeting, you mumble all the time, and you're really disorganized can understandably cause feelings of insult and criticism. So these statements blame the receiver and may imply su- I can not say superiority. How do I say this, Kim? It,
Superiority.
thank you, on the part of the speaker. Thank you. Instead of using iMessages for feedback can be more effective. So this format includes an objective description of the behavior, the effect it has on the speaker and the speaker's feelings. For example, sometimes you speak in a very low voice. I often have difficulty hearing you when you speak at that volume. It often makes me feel frustrated. So avoid starting sentences with when you, as it can invoke feelings of blame and injustice. Okay, so we're a little bit behind, so I'm going to skip these review questions and wrapping up. So, although this workshop is coming to a close, we hope that your journey to understanding communication strategies is just beginning, and we wish you the best of luck on the rest of your journey. So, before you leave, we want you guys to fill out this very short survey, and it's going to help us do more of this kind of workshop. And here we have another um, couple of more words from the wise. Okay,
Mm.
thank you so much for coming, everybody, and make
And
sure you fill out this survey.
yes, yes. And thank you so much for your participation today.
Thank
And
you.
happy Friday.